Hello guys, how are we doing and welcome back to the channel. If you struggle to read dealership spawns on hardpoint within the Black Ops 6 ranked playlist, this video is going to be for you. We're going to be covering where the spawn points are, how to block certain spawn points, and more importantly, how to control the spawns to give you guys the best chance of winning your ranked play matches. And of course, the more you win by and the more you win, the more SI you get and the higher you can rank up. Going to start it off on P1, of course, as is natural. For those of you whose this is their first spawn guide, obviously feel free to check out the rest. I've done it for all of the maps within Black Ops 6 ranked play. The rings are the spawn points. You've got key callouts for the areas that I'm going to be talking about, and then the shaded areas are where you can block the said spawn from. You can also block a spawn by being in that spawn point or by looking at it. So general information for P1 is that the main two spawns are back alley and parking lot. With no pressure from either team, these will be the main spawns throughout the whole of P1. But obviously within ranked play, there's going to be pressure. People are playing for the win, so the spawns are going to be slightly different. The VIP spawn is the alternative spawn for parking, and boxes spawn is the alternative spawn for back alley. P2 spawn is the last resort spawn, which opens up when all other spawn points are blocked, which can happen in a very specific situation. In order to block certain areas, so you can block parking by pushing through that side of P1, so all you really need to be is in that side of P1 and that'll block the parking spawns. And you can block the back alley spawn almost symmetrically by being on that side of P1 as well, so it's fairly quite easy to block both these two main spawns. You just need to be in P1 and their side of P1. You can also block both alley and you can block both parking and VIP by being pushed into the showroom, and you can also block boxes and back alley by being pushed into garage. Now, when all four of these spawns are blocked, the red spawn will open. So, just to recap, the main spawns are blue and pink. If you push through the other side of P1, you'll block their closest spawn, and they'll spawn further out. But if you push even more through P1 into like their main spawn, it'll block that spawn completely for them, all right? So let's see a situation in which they would spawn in P2. So let's take this live example here. You've got the red team on P1 currently. They've got the blue team have both members in the showroom or coming up to L and in garage, and that has spawned that player number 6 all the way in P2. So all it really takes is players from the same team being in showroom and garage for them to spawn the enemies all the way out in P2, or music room that would be actually. If you spawn, let's go through some scenarios now that you can hopefully imagine when you're in the game itself. If you spawn alley or parking, all it means is the enemy have control of the other side of the map, and there's not too much to read into that. Now, if you spawn at either alternative spawn, then so like VIP or boxes or one of those two, it means the enemy have the other side of that map control and they're pushed towards your side of P1 itself, okay? So if you, for example, if you spawn boxes, it means the enemy are on the right hand side, but they're pushed into your side of P1, blocking back alley. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, as I say, if you spawn P2, it simply means the enemy has control of both garage and showroom. Simple as that. Strategy-wise, I don't think there's a massive benefit to either side. Like, it's up to personal preference, but it's easier to choose a specific side and control the spawns accordingly. You don't want flips to happen, so try and identify what spawn you want the enemy to spawn in and work the map like that, and try and make it predictable so that your team know exactly where to look for where the enemies are going to be coming from off of spawn. As I say, it's essentially you don't want spawns to be unpredictable. You do not want to try and push through P1 if you're trying to hold that side spawns, because that will ultimately spawn them P2 or completely flip depending on where the rest of your team are located. Moving on to P2, the main two spawns here are VIP room, or this space just outside the VIP room, and back alley. Now, the garage spawn is the alternative to alley, and the lorry spawn is the alternative to VIP. Spawns here are fairly self-explanatory. They match the traditional system and are readable most of the time. Now, there's one example which I'm going to show you, which is a little bit of a weird one that I managed to notice in my research, but most of the time they are relatively readable. You can block the VIP spawn by being pushed towards that side of P2 within this L here, in this pink shaded area. The player will spawn lorry if the pink spawn is blocked, and the other team have the garage side of the map controlled. Symmetrically, you can block alley spawns by being pushed towards that side of P2. similar to what I said, but the other side. So you can block alley by being pushed slightly through P2. And interestingly, you can also block just the garage spawns by being in P1 or pushed out into courtyard, which we're going to get into in a second. Now, let's take some scenarios here. If you spawn VIP or alley, it just means the enemy has the other side of the map controlled and aren't pushing up too much. But obviously this is ranked play. People are going to be pushing. So if you spawn garage, it means the enemy has the VIP side of the map controlled, the showroom side, but are pushed towards the court side of P2. Not quite all the way through, but pushed towards the court side of P2. Now, if you spawn lorry, it can mean, similar to what I've just said on garage, it can mean the enemy have the other side of the map controlled, but can also mean an enemy is pushed into courtyard or P1. Now, if you spawn here, if you spawn lorry and you know your team are in garage or alley or that sort of area, you might be worth checking VIP, as the enemy team can still spawn here, even if you've just spawned here. So let's take this example. So player number 6 has just spawned in, and they've spawned here because player number 3 is in P1 blocking alley and garage spawns. They then proceed to move forward, but as this player number 8 kills number 3, player 1 spawns in, and because number 8 on the red team are now blocking alley and garage because of where they're positioned, player number 1 has still spawned VIP. Another player, because of the position of the red team, they're blocking both of these left spawns here, another player has also just spawned in at VIP, even though player number 6 is just here. And then the only thing that stopped the players in the blue team from spawning all the way back out of lorry is player 6 getting all the way through like so, just getting into this environment. So having players around this P1 area will block these two back spawns. And we've just seen a second ago, like here, even if it means a player's really close, being in this P1 zone, being in this garage P1 zone, or in this window, is going to spawn the enemy out no matter what. Okay, no matter how close you are to the other team. Okay, so just be very careful that if you spawn in where player number 6 is spawned in, and you know your team have got control of this zone where this player number 8 would be, just check the blue team spawn in VIP, because you could get some free spawn kills that they're not going to expect either. Again, there's no preferred spawn from my perspective. I think either or are pretty good. It depends on your personal preference, but I think it's easier to probably trap them in the VIP and lorry spawn than the other side. Okay, so all you need to do for that to happen is have someone in P1 watching their flank through P1, then the rest of the enemies basically need to flood L or closet and watch that sort of area whilst being on the hills as well. You've seen how easy it is to block these back spawns. You simply need someone in that window, for example, but whilst they're in that window, they can also be looking at the flank, making sure they don't come round from lorry. And then, as I say, the rest of the team can literally sit on P2, sit in L, just watching them come out of here. Interestingly, you could have a setup that looks like this. So you could have a player number 8 blocking these spawns. You could have player number 6 sat back here, watching the blue team just flood out of VIP, not knowing that there's spawn trapped in there. If you can work that, kudos to you. But that would be a really ultimate spawn trap, because all the blue team are just going to spawn in this room. So as long as you've got a player out here where this player number 8 is and you're here, you can literally watch them come out of that room over and over and over again while you're on this really nice car heady. Obviously, they're going to kill you at some point because they're going to be able to maneuver themselves around, but that would be a real nice blocker for you in the first point. Moving on to P3. Now, this is a little bit of a different one. I've got some different diagrams here, which we're going to get onto in a second. The 4 spawn points are vans, Lambo, lorry, and the space between the gold car and VIP. If a team has 0 map control and they've only just spawned in, for example, so you've just got 4 wiped and they've just spawned in their spawn, the other team are likely to spawn at the closer side of that side of the map. So say, for example, you're pushing from this left-hand side here, you managed to get 4 down, one of your teammates died in the process. As your enemies spawn in, they spawn all the way over here. But because you've just gone 4 down, the player who's died on your team will still spawn close, because you've got so much map control, so much. You've got, all the enemy team have just spawned in. You've got so much map control. Your team's going to spawn in with you, pretty much is what that means. And that'll work on either side. Now, Lambo and lorry spawns are only really utilized when that happens, and there's no pressure from the enemy team. And obviously, as I say, in ranked, there's going to be pressure. So unless you get a 4 down and then the teammate spawns close to you because you've got that map control, fine. But on a normal spawn, you'll likely see the van spawn and the gold spawn to happen more than the other 2 spawns. And the logic for that is a player will spawn at the furthest hill away from an enemy player out of the 2. Now on this diagram, you could essentially push up to the orange line. Let's say we've got this left-hand side here. You could push up to this orange line as long as you've got a player who's pulled your side of your orange line. So you could have a player sat on this Lambo heady and a player pushed all the way up to where my cursor is now, and the enemies are going to keep spawning here because you've got a teammate closer to these spawns than you are to this spawn back here. That's the logic. Blocking, as far as blocking is concerned, it's really easy to block spawns you want to keep on this map, on this hill, sorry. You simply need to have someone sat a bit further back than you are willing to push forward as a team. That'll mean that the enemy is going to spawn at the furthest one away, which will always be the one over here or here, because you've got a teammate who's virtually sat blocking and doing that. That's the only thing they're going to be doing. Now, let's take some scenarios here. If you spawn at Lambo or Lorry, it means the enemy have almost no map control around P3 itself, so are likely just spawning in or are pushed around the P4 area, sort of squeezing you towards a closer spawn to P3. So they might be rotating, or you might have just got 4 down or something like that, but that'll be why you spawn Lambo or Lorry. Now, if you spawn at either Vans or VIP, it simply means the enemy is blocking the other side of the map, but it could mean an enemy's quite close to your spawn. As we've just said, you can have an enemy on this side sat all the way back here, but an enemy on the other as well could be pushed all the way here. So you might not have as free of a route to P3 as you might think just because you've spawned here. Okay, so just be very careful coming from either of these fast spawns, because the enemy could be closer than you think. Now, I personally prefer to have the Lambo spawns here because of how dominant there's so much cover towards P3 from this side. You've got height advantage looking down at the hill. And you've got more cover whilst looking over the objective, as I say. Now, to keep these spawns, you need to dedicate someone to block by being around the sort of Vans area, garage area. But whilst they're blocking, they can also be looking at the pinch and looking at the flank for any people who decide to try and flip the spawns on them. They're not just blocking, they're watching the flank. They can have 2 uses. The rest of the team can pretty much play around the hill. They can be watching the cuts off to the front. They can be sat getting the time. They can be sat in mid, making sure the enemies can't get through mid. That sort of thing, but that's the solid setup. You need to have someone blocking to keep in the spawns. You've got traditional for COD. P4, the main 2 spawns here are Gold Car and the Blue Van right at the back here. Parking is the alternative spawn for the Gold Car, and Boxes is the alternative spawn for the Blue Van. You have to be actively blocking Boxes and the Van spawn to stop the enemies from spawning there, okay? And that's really, really, really important. The game will prioritize both of these spawns before looking to allocate a player spawn to Parking or Gold. Okay, so you need to be blocking both these spawns to make sure the enemy can't spawn behind you. Now, you can block the Blue Van by being pushed towards Tin through P4. You can block Boxes by being this side of the garage or generally in this vicinity. To block Gold, you simply need to be pushed into the lounge through P4, but this side. And obviously, you try not to block Yellow because it's the better spawn to have the enemy spawning at, because it's so far away from P4 and so far away from the next hill, P5, as you'll notice just here. Let's take some scenarios now. So if you find yourself spawning at the Blue Van, it simply means the enemy has left this spawn open and aren't pushing through Tin. If you spawn Boxes, it means the enemy has left this spawn open, but they are pushed through Tin a little bit, so expect the gunfight coming quite quickly as you progress to P4. If you spawn Pink or in Gold, it simply means the enemy have control of the garage area of the map. And finally, if you spawn Parking or this yellow zone, it means the enemy have control of garage area, but are likely pushed through this lounge. So they're waiting for you to run through this area. So just be careful coming off Parking spawns that they likely got control of this zone of the map. Strategically, you ideally want this left-hand side spawns, okay, because of how dominant it is to P5 and how far away you can have the enemy spawning all the way out over here. You need to have a player sat around the garage area blocking the van spawns. And in doing that, they can be watching the flank as well, so they're not completely useless and they can pick up some kills. You then need a player on time. You need one push through lounge and another one maybe watching the mid-window push, perhaps located in P1, just for anyone who wants to watch, for anyone on the enemy team who feels they can go from Parking all the way through to middle into the window. And that's P4. It's pretty simple. You want these left-hand side spawns. You want to keep someone blocking there, and the rest of your team can run around the rest of the map, just making sure that the enemies are choked all the way back down over here. Moving into P5, the main 2 spawns here are going to be Boxes on the van, like this general area, and the showroom. Lorry and VIP open up as secondary spawns when the other 2 spawns are blocked. You can block Boxes and van spawn by pretty much being that side of the garage. You pretty much have to be in that spawn to block it. or seeing like visible of that spawn to block it. And you can block the showroom spawns by being, you know, around P1, in the TV room, that sort of area. Now, depending on whereabouts you're blocking the showroom spawns from, as long as you've got this blocked as well, the enemies will spawn lorry or VIP. If you're pushed towards the right-hand side here, so if you're pushed into P1, the enemy's likely to spawn VIP because you're a little bit close to lorry. However, on the flip side, if you're in the TV room or if you're a little bit further back into P1, the enemies are likely to spawn lorry. So if you're blocking showroom but you're on the right, they're going to spawn VIP. If you're blocking showroom but you're a little bit on the left, they're going to spawn lorry. So it's quite intuitive. Now, if you spawn pink, it simply means your team are already here, or the enemy have completely left this open. And if they've done that, they're idiots, because this is the spawn you want, which we're going to get into in a second. Now, if you spawn showroom, and it means the enemy has pushed through garage and have also completely cleared P1 area. So you spawn here, it means the enemies aren't in P1 and they're likely all the way over here or on P5 itself. Now, if you spawn at either lorry or VIP, it means the enemy have control of both sides of P5, both P1 and back boxes or white van, and might be trying to spawn trap you, so be careful out of spawn. If you spawn VIP rather than lorry, it could mean the enemy is pushed towards the street side or towards this close side of P1. However, if you spawn lorry side, it could mean the enemy is pushed around P4 side or towards this top right half of P1 or TV room. And that's how you can get a little bit of info from which one of these two you spawn in. Strategy-wise, you obviously want to have these back pink spawns here. There's boxes or white van spawns because of how close it is to P5. Even the secondary default spawn in this showroom spawn is twice the distance as these close spawns are to P5. So you really, really want to fight for these hills, for this spawn, sorry. If you don't start with those spawns at the beginning of the P5, you want to try and rotate. Take 10 seconds out maybe to rotate to P5, to rotate to these spawns, get the kills. The enemies are then going to spawn all the way out, meaning that you've got a little bit of leeway, a little bit of time to wait for the rest of the team to help you out. But that's the thing you really should be doing. You really want to fight for those spawns and then the hill itself. Once you have obtained these spawns, try and have your team push through the hill once they've got a few kills into P1, into TV, because as I say, that will spawn the enemy all the way up to these spawns, and it's a long distance, okay? Just be careful though, that if you're blocking and you're pushed through towards P1 area, obviously the enemy is going to be spawning here. When they spawn this far out, they're likely to want to pinch you. I mean, if you spawn lorry, you're going to want to push down this left street. If you spawn VIP area, you might want to push through P4. So just be careful if you are trying to spawn the enemies this far away. Just have whoever's blocking take a look at the flanks every so often, okay? They can go between street or the back alley, but you want to be very careful that you don't let an enemy spawning this far out just slip behind you just as easily. And that pretty much covers dealership hardpoint spawns. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, of course, you can leave it down below in the comments, or you can join the Discord, add me on Twitter, and ask a question there if you don't want to leave it down in the comments below. That'll do for me. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.